Series 2012.
Has the notice of the hearing been given in the time, form, and manners required by law? And do you have the affidavit on file?
Notice has been given, and affidavit is on file.
Have any communications been received on the matter?
Communications have been received.
Is there a staff report?
Mayor and members of the City Council, this is a public hearing for the approval of documents relating to the issuance of the lease revenue bonds by the Inglewood Joint Powers Authority to refund the outstanding Inglewood Public Financing Authority lease revenue bonds, Series 2012. In July 2012, the Inglewood Public Financing Authority issued $30 million of tax-exempt lease revenue bonds to refund certain outstanding bonds issued in 1999 and to finance certain capital and seismic improvements to the City of Inglewood Civic Center and related facilities. In 2012, the 2012 bonds currently mature in August of 2035 and are subject to redemption in 2022. It is anticipated that the 2019 bonds will be issued on a taxable basis, but will still provide debt service present value savings of at least 5% over the next 3 years in the general fund. Since the members of the Inglewood Public Financing Authority are the city and the former redevelopment agency, it is necessary and appropriate for a new financing authority to be created to issue these bonds. Due to prevailing interest rates in the municipal bond market, the city can now benefit from refunding the 2012 bonds, which would lower the city's cost of borrowing. Present value savings are currently estimated to be at least 5%. This would provide approximately $2 to $3 million of savings in the general fund in the first 3 years of the 2019 bonds. The term of the refunding bonds will not extend beyond the term of the 2012 bonds. There are currently approximately $9 million remaining from the 2012 bonds that are still remaining. This amount will be retained and will also be used to complete the seismic repairs to the City Civic Center facilities. On December 11, 2018, the City Council adopted a resolution authorizing staff to commence the proceedings for the issuance of the 2019 bonds, appointing consultants to assist the city in furtherance thereof. Urban Futures Incorporated was appointed as municipal advisor to the city. Quentin Timming was designated as bond counsel and disclosure counsel, and Backstrom, McCarley, Berry and Company and Cabrera Capital were designated as underwriters. On February 5th, the council set the public hearing for the 12th, and on February 7th, the public hearing was published. You have any questions?
Well, actually, we'll ask if there are any persons present who wish to address the council on the matter. Not.
Option? Second.
One clarifying question. The reason that we're receiving a better interest rate or two, interest rates have changed, but more importantly, we've had bond rating upgrades that make us eligible to refinance at a lower interest rate. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then, as far as collateral, I saw something somewhere where someone said we were leveraging the senior center to do this. Isn't it true that we're only shifting the collateral for the bonds from City Hall to the senior center? Is that correct?
That is correct.
So this doesn't change anything in the city's level of encumbrance, it just changes the collateral.
That is correct.
If no further council comment, it's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Council members Dodson.
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. Consent calendar, items 2 through 8.
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk?
Council members Dodson.
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. DR1.
Staff report presenting the fiscal year 2018-19 first quarter budget review report.
Your report, we're receiving and filing. Please. Yes.
All right. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
All right, so let's get started.
This is Kiana Buchanan.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public. I am glad to present the city's fiscal year 2018-19 first quarter presentation report based on the first 3 months of the year beginning October 1st through December 31st of 2018. The first quarter report provides a snapshot and a summary of the city's financial status, primarily focusing on the general fund. With that, I'll begin with our key economic indicators, providing a snapshot. Our property taxes has experienced a 6.2 net taxable value increase. This is attributable to the 2% assessors applied California Consumer Price Index increase per the Proposition 13 inflationary adjustment.
Fiona, real quickly, the city didn't increase property tax assessments. This is the county that set the value based upon the allowable increase in property valuation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
And our increase in the taxable value compared to last year is highly attributed to the stadium changes we've had with the parcel in terms of our value.
Okay, so let's make that really clear. That means the value of that parcel is much greater than it was last year before the construction. So the owner of that parcel is paying a greater property tax, which contributed largely to this increase that we're seeing on the screen. Is that correct?
That is correct. And keep in mind, this is net taxable value, not the actual percentage increase in dollars, okay?
But it doesn't have the same impact as Councilman Morales was prompting me to the residents. Is that right?
That is correct.
Thank you.
That is correct. Okay, and continuing on, our sales tax quarterly trends are reporting an increase of 37.5%. This increase is based on the momentum of our construction, our current construction right now. Our building permit activity and fees has increased 93% over prior year, same period. UUT has experienced a decrease this quarter of 6.6 compared to the prior year, same period. Our business license tax are continuing to spike. They're experiencing over 57% compared to the prior year, same period.
So let's stop for a second. Explain to people what business license tax is generated from.
The business license tax is generated from the process of new
businesses
business
that are
applications
established in town.
that are established from new business within the city of Inglewood.
Okay, so, and what I'm getting at is that I read stories about one or two businesses that had their rent raised, but the reality is that there are more small businesses that have started in this year probably than any year prior to now. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right, I just want to make that clear.
That is correct.
And that's what that figure represents. It represents the establishment of more small businesses. All right, thank you.
That is correct.
All of the stories we read about.
Yeah, possibly. That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Okay. Now, with that, our unemployment for the city is currently 5.4%. That's down 2% from the same quarter last year. The city expenditures for the general fund are under the current budget by 7.4% through the first quarter. All right. Now, this slide presents a snapshot of the general fund budget as a starting point on October 1st of 2018. The general fund revenues are $128,072,451. General fund expenditures were $128,016,272. The city is projecting a surplus of $56,179 this year. Okay. Now I'll provide some information relative to our revenue performances within the general fund. Of the current total general fund revenue budget amount of $128 million, the city has received $30.6 million, or 24% in revenues at first quarter, compared to $22.8 million in the prior year same period. Now, on the next slide, I'll go through each of the categories indicated here and briefly discuss the increases or the decreases relative to each of those categories. So, the revenue performance for our UUTs, as you can see, are down $235,000 or 6.6%. The slight decrease is primarily attributed to the cable, which is our satellite and internet streaming subscribers. Not that we have not received them, but the postings for those were delayed in the first quarter. Normalized, that category would be flat, okay? The sales tax are up $1.6 million or 37.5%. This increase is attributed to the increased momentum, as I mentioned previously, in our building construction, fuel prices, and sizable gains in online sales.
And let me make a note here. Now, I don't know if everybody remembers, but one of the things that we insisted upon in the development agreement was that contracts for materials under $5 million had to be wholesaled to Inglewood. There was a building put up on the site that was the wholesale site. Ordinarily, we wouldn't capture these taxes because we don't make concrete here, we don't make steel here. And so by insisting that they're wholesale to Inglewood, we captured those sales taxes, and that's why sales taxes are up.
This becoming the point of sale.
This is the point of sale in Inglewood.
Yes. That's okay. I appreciate it. You did say over $5 million though, right?
I said it was under 5 million, contracts under 5 million.
Stay within the city.
Stay within the city.
Okay, all right. Okay. Carrying on, our property taxes are up $385,000. This is now in terms of dollar values, or 5.8%. Again, this increase is highly attributed to our change in parcel at the stadium, as well as increased values in our homes in Inglewood. As far as our other local taxes, now these taxes include business license fees, card club revenues, transit, TOT, parimutuels, and amongst some other admission taxes and so forth. The local taxes are down approximately $717,000 or 12.6%. Though most of all local taxes are experiencing an increase, the overall decrease is related to the non-residential construction tax. Now, not to say that they're actually down, it's just slightly lower than the same period last year, but overall still up. Okay. Lastly, our other revenues are up $6.8 million or 262%. Now, this increase is attributed to an anticipated increase for our development fees that we were anticipating. That just happened to come in within our first 3 months.
So to make it clear that when we achieve developments of this size, they have a drastic impact on our general fund, as you can see.
That is correct. So overall, our general fund revenues are up 34.5%. Okay. Now, I will provide some information regarding our general fund expenditure performances. So of the total current general fund expenditure budget amount of $133.2 million, the city has expended $23.4 million or 17.6% in expenses at first quarter, compared to $26.2 million in the prior year same period. As with the revenues, on the next slide, I'll go through each category and explain the increases and decreases. Okay, let me go back one. So David would like me to explain. As you've seen on our first slide where we spoke to our expenditure budget of $128 million, our current, which is the modified amount, is $133. That change is just based on the carryover commitments that we had from the prior year, which is our rollover commitments. Okay? All right. Now, I'll go through our expenditure performances for those categories. Now, the majority of the departments have experienced a slight increase due to the MOU increases of 5% for all bargaining groups except for sworn, which is why you can see the red indicators here for the departments below police and fire are reporting a slight increase. That's attributed to the MOU increases for the employees.
An MOU is Memorandum of Understanding?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Police and fire expenditures combined are down approximately $370,000 or 2%. The decrease is mostly attributed to the decrease related to workers' compensation charges applied to the operations for personal services related activity. Okay. Overall, the general.
Personnel services, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
That is correct, the charges for personnel. So overall, the general fund expenditures are down 10.8 compared to last fiscal year's same period. Right. So now I will speak to some of our first quarter special fund performances. And on this slide, we've combined them both, whether it's the revenues or the expenditures, and I'll go through the revenues first.
Before we move on, just for clarity, the fact that expenditures are down for this quarter as a projection against the year might be reflective of the fact that there are capital projects that are budgeted for in this year that haven't been expended yet, and they may fall later in the year. I just want to make people understand that doesn't mean that we over budget. It means that certain things that we plan to do during the year, they weren't done in the first quarter, so there may be a catch-up.
Correct. The cyclical nature of our spending and how certain things are done, yeah.
We don't
yeah.
spend in a straight line, nor do we receive revenues in a straight line.
That is correct.
All right.
That is correct. Okay. So our special fund revenues consist of things such as our gas tax, our Prop A and C, our grants, our RSI operations, and so forth. The revenues are up $1.4 million or 14.8% collectively for the same quarter last fiscal year. We've received 17% of the budget as indicated in the slide. This increase is attributed to the increased activity related to our grants and our special funds. Proprietary funds consist of water, sewer, sanitation, and parking. Those revenues are down approximately $370,000 collectively. We've received 20% of our budget so far in that category. The debt service fund, which is our debt obligations, are showing an anomaly due to the POB transactions compared to the prior year, but the normalized activity, not including our prior year for the POB, would be relatively flat. In the bottom portion of the slide there is regarding our expenditure portion for the special revenue funds. The expenses are up $865,000 or 8.1% for the same quarter last fiscal year. We've expended 13% of the budget there. The increase is attributed to the increased activity as mentioned with our revenues. The property fund for the expenses are up $1.9 million. I'm sorry, the proprietary fund for our expenses are up $1.9 million or 27.1% collectively. We've expended 16% of the budget there. And again, the same with our debt service expense portion. That information is a little skewed because of our POB from the prior year, but the normal activity would be relatively flat. And that debt service portion is mostly used for our interfund charges. So now we have our first quarter capital improvement project financial summary. The capital improvement project budget includes a current appropriation of $37.8 million. Of this amount, a total of $2.7 million or 7.2% has been expended as of the first quarter ending December 31st, 2018. There's a total encumbrance amount for future commitments of $9.8 million, or 25.9% of the total current appropriation.
So, would you back up to the slide
Yes.
for a second? Just to make it clear, it's just what we were talking about, that we've only spent 7% of the appropriations in the first quarter, which would be 25% of the year. So it shows you that there'll be a catch-up. If all these projects are done, there'll be a catch-up later on in the year. So we just want to make it clear to everybody that it doesn't mean that we've over budgeted. It means that we don't spend in a straight line, nor do we receive revenues in a straight line.
That is correct. Our proportional levels will rise over the period of our quarters.
And also, we're excluding the residential sound installation activities as well as successor agency funded
From
expenditures.
that chart, that is correct. I appreciate you guys. Okay. And to add to the first quarter capital improvement summary, we have our project status by category. So this slide shows the project status by category, where we have a total of 26 projects are in the construction phase, and 7 projects are under contract for design. As of first quarter, a total of 33 capital improvement projects are active. 26 are in construction and 7 are in design. And that pretty much concludes our presentation. Any questions?
Are there any questions by the council?
I move 1 and 2, Mayor, if you're looking for.
Second.
Well, we'll go on and take the vote, but I wanted to get one more piece of information, but well, they're getting the information for me. I'm just confirming a figure. Madam Clerk?
Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales, Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye. One of the things that I wanted to say was that, during the election, there were people trying to say that the city of Inglewood is deficit spending, that we're going broke, and nothing could be further from the truth. And it frightens me that people running for office would be so misinformed or deliberately misinforming people. The reality is that in 2011, we were down to our last $11 million in reserves. And at the beginning of this year, we were at $53 million in reserves. We've basically quintupled our unobligated reserves. As a percentage of our spending plan, Moody's in 2016 said that the city far exceeds any city that they rate in the country in liquidity of your spending plan versus unobligated reserves. At that time, we had probably 42 million in reserves. So I just wanted to, Mr. Buchanan, I just wanted you to just give us a brief report or assessment on where we stand as far as liquidity versus 8 years ago.
As far as liquidity, I think we're pretty solvent at this point.
That was pretty modest. We're more than solvent.
I mean, we got over $50 million in the bank.
We're solid as far as liquidity.
Yes,
And
extremely.
there was one more figure that I was interested in. Let's see. And Mr. Esparza or Ms. Quakey, we've had 5 bond rating increases in the last 4 years.
Yes,
All
that's
right.
correct.
And so what that means, that's like your FICO score for a city. But your bond rating determines how much you can borrow, the rate that you borrow money. But it's more of a statement of your finances and your financial condition. And the last thing, I hate to surprise you guys, but 5 of the last 8 years, we've ended up with surpluses. Is that right? As opposed to
Yes.
deficits. Okay. So that's another thing that was said. The papers always ask, when they ask us questions, they said, well, isn't it true you've only recently stopped deficit spending? Well, here's the way it works. A budget is a projection. It's saying this is what we expect to spend and this is what we expect to take in revenues. We always budget very conservatively. We put projects in that we hope to accomplish. You don't always get to build what you intend to build. Like, for instance, the roof over at the city yard leaks, and we put aside $1 million for that. We don't get to that all the time because we do so many projects. Our main focus is residential, our streets, our sidewalks, our tree trimming. And so we actually let city projects lag behind. So we don't always get to do the things, but we budget for them ambitiously. Another thing, the projection on revenues is always, it's a guess based on historical data. But when you have things happening like what we have with the stadium construction and all the development, we overachieve in revenues, and so that's what you're seeing happening right here. So I just wanted to make it very clear that the city is more liquid and solvent now than it has ever been in its history. But anyway,
That is correct.
all right. Thank you very much.
I know, I'm like, wait a minute.
That was very good, Ms. Buchanan.
Thank you.
A1,
Thank you, Mayor. No oral reports.
DM1,
Mayor, no oral reports.
DC1,
Mayor, no oral reports. Thank you.
DT1.
I'd just like to really thank Acting Budget Director Kiana Buchanan for giving an excellent report. And what I'm really so pumped up about is the stadium. That stadium is finally built. And whatever its value happened to be, they're going to have to pay at least a little over 1% in property taxes, which they will render to the county. And the county, again, will render our portion.
14% of that.
And we will be getting 100% of revenues we never got before. Now, I am really pumped up about that. What did you say, Mayor Fletcher?
I said we'll get 14% of that 1% that they
Correct.
remit to the county.
Absolutely. That concludes my remarks.
And they were very good remarks.
I know.
Ooh, I'm stunned. CSA 2.
Approval of the minutes for the successor agency held on January 29th, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Successor agency members, Dodson.
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Chairman Buds.
Aye. Adjourn to successor agency H2.
Approval of the minutes for the Housing Authority meeting held on January 29th, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Housing Authority members, Dodson.
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Chairman Buds.
Aye. Adjourn to Housing Authority. The Finance Authority is in session. F1.
Approval of the minutes for the Finance Authority meeting held on January 29th, 2019.
Approval.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Finance Authority members, Dodson.
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Chairman Buds.
Aye. Adjourn the Finance Authority. JP1.
Staff report recommending adoption of a resolution approving the bylaws of the Inglewood Joint Powers Authority.
Items 1 and 2.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Joint Powers Authority members, Dodson.
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Chairman Buds.
Aye. We'll adjourn the Joint Powers Authority. Public comments. Any person wishing to address the City Council in any manner connected with city business not elsewhere considered on the agenda may do so at this time.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Odesh Riley. I'm a longtime resident, born and raised here. And I wanted to bring to the council and just our community mental health and mentorship. Last Thursday, my best friend and brother from another mother went to Inglewood High School with him since the beginning. His stepson committed suicide. 17 years old, talented athlete. Ati Hara grew up, played for the Jets over at Rogers Park. Because he never was really in trouble, never asked a lot of questions. In our community, one of the things is we always look for the kids who are starting problems and those that we can definitely pick out. But don't talk to the kids. I'm sorry if I'm running over.
You take as much time as you need.
Don't talk to the ones who don't talk much. Coach Scott Collins, Blaylock, Dr. Crow, they spent a lot of time with me when I was younger, making sure when I was just not looking right, they pulled me to the side and just asked me what was going on. Having problems with girls, having problems with grades, whatever it was, they took a lot of time. And that's one of the things I really always loved about small town, really. I just wanted to address that. We need to spend more time talking to our young black and brown boys, making sure that we, just check in on them because we don't know what's going on in their heads all the time. As Councilman Dotson, his mother, Miss Sean Patterson, has been a resident of your district for about 20 years now. So possibly close in memory of Xavier Carter, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Odess, you make a very strong point, particularly in the African-American community. There's a reluctance to recognize mental illness and have it diagnosed. I have personal family experience with not a problem, it's a fact of life. And so what you're saying and what you're bringing forward is extremely, extremely relevant. And I would encourage families that, have young people that need help, treatment, to attempt them to get it. The problem is that once they become adults, they can make their own choices. So it's a very difficult and heartbreaking.
Also, I want to thank Sabrina Barnes for being very helpful, helping me get a space for his class. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, and staff. My condolences to the young man that just spoke and the difficulties. My point here today will be to thank Alex Padilla and George Dotson for their meetings that they had. George Dotson with his shredding event, and Mr. Padilla with his earthquake preparedness and emergency awareness of things that are going on in our city. Thank you, gentlemen, for your kind and very civic duties that you do for the city. Really appreciate that in here. Secondly, Mayor, those capital projects that we need to do, we know that the city is always going to have, tree trim, streets, all that's going to go on for years and decades. But the projects that need, like the city yard needs a new roof, let's knock that out. We knock it out, we not deal with it for about 10, 20 years. Okay? I understand it's raining right now, we can do that in the summer, but we'll get that done.
We need you in Public Works.
And those are my comments for this day, and everybody please have a beautiful week and a safe weekend. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, staff, council members. Odess, my condolences to your friend. Other than just the chamber, I'm also the president for the NAACP for Inglewood South Bay. And one of our main focal points right now, because we've started to rebrand and regroup ourselves, is mental illness. So we encourage anyone that is interested in working with this. We also have a college youth program, so we're going to be reaching out to the youth. And not just high school, we're going to go back to elementary school and start working with the youth from elementary school, because a lot of it tends to stem from the early ages in life. And like you said, we just don't talk to them. If we see that they're doing okay and they seem to be moving through life at the proper pace. But a lot of times kids hold things in and they never say if something's bothering them or something's going on at school, whatever the case may be. So we want to get the right group of people to get out and start working with this youth group and try to find out what's going on with them in their daily lives and encourage them, to speak to us, because a lot of them don't want to talk to older people, and then they get the wrong information from their peers. So we want to encourage them to come to us and be able to sit down and talk to us, and we engage and do different events with them so that they feel like they can come to us. So definitely we'll reach out to you.
Davis.
Yes, Mayor, City Council, and staff, Ray Davis. Lost to the community feels like to me. I've suffered a loss. And we gotta work happen. I'll try to end on a positive note. Congratulations, gentlemen. Just making history every day. Tell a person, oh, you're going to get 1% of something. Give me 1% of what? All right, no, that stadium's going to be probably valued out at what, 5 to 6 billion? The math, people, do the math. Oh, stadium. Next to the stadium, basketball arena. It's gonna price out at $2 billion, maybe more. Folks, if you're not a believer yet, there's nothing I could tell you. There's people I love, they'll never believe it. But it's still happening. With that, keep praying. Yourselves and each other. Have a good one, folks.
My friend, Mr. Oldham, you have my deepest sympathy. I feel you, believe me. We have a long ways to go. Our school district have let our kids down really, really bad in the last 18, 20 years. Maybe they're doing better now, but we got a long ways to go with our kids. We need to start working. Absolutely. You know, I'm chairman of Park and Recreation. I would love to see these kids participate in recreation, and we have the facilities for them to do it. But for some reason, they don't show up like they really should. I just, you know, I feel sorry for this, you know. I'm an old man, but, you know, I just hope things change. I want to say to this council and staff, you guys are miracle people. I tell you, I don't know if you know it or not, but you building the #1 city in the United States of America right here. You know what? They said we couldn't do it. All I'm going to tell you, stay together. Don't try to back by your people. Work together like you've been working together for all these years, and look what you see. Start fighting people in the back and stuff. That won't work. Keep up what you're doing. Work together. This is a beautiful city, #1 in the United States. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll close public comment. Council comments. Councilman Dotson, District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to send my prayers and condolence out to Odessa. Know what it feels like to lose a really close friend. And I want to thank everybody who came out to this record-breaking shredding events we had. This one we had to turn people away. That's the first time it ever happened, and they were lined up down 7th Avenue. So, you know, very good job, and thanks for coming out. We had some staff members here to come out. I won't call their names because I don't want everybody to know who they are, but thanks for coming out. I appreciate that support. I also want to speak with the 77th Street Block Club.
they invited me to their block club, but I couldn't go because of the shredding event. They came to the shredding event so we could have their meeting. So I really appreciate that. Evidently, they were very interested in what I had to say. So thank you, 77th Street Block Club, and I hope that everything works out and you guys do very well. You know, I've been in the city a long time, not as long as Mr. Agee, but a long time. And I've seen this city come and you know, full circle. When I first moved in here, this was a great city. It went down and it's back up again. This time, it's a great, great city. So I want to thank these guys that I served with. I want to thank the staff, the police department. It takes all of us to do this. And I appreciate all of you. And thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Before Councilman Padilla starts, I'm going to have to tell you something. I'm going to have to come to one of these shredding events.
Record breaking.
They must be serving alcohol or something. I have never heard of so many shredding events. So I'm checking you out at this next one, George.
Come on by.
Councilman Padilla, District 2.
Record breaking.
Record breaking.
Record breaking.
But, you know, I just want to start out by thanking our city manager, Mr. Fields, and our chief financial officer, our assistant city manager, Mr. Esparza, you know, and their staff. You know, great presentation today about the city's economic position, where we stand. When you talk about our future and you talk about how we use our strategies and the knowledge that they present, you know, it's the work that they do, the staff does to make sure that you know, we do these presentations that everybody can follow. And the mayor asks these really good questions. He does a great job of being able to bring it down in the sense of so we can understand it. And that makes a difference because, you know, you could have some folks talk about finances and just speak over your head, and then people walk away shaking their head thinking they understood it. But it's not till people can, like the mayor does, clarify it so that we can all walk away from here saying, you know what, we're in a better place than we've been for years, and our economic future is solid and bright. And we're going to continue to keep our foot on the gas and continue to grow the city of Inglewood. So again, thank you to staff. Thank you too for all the work you do to make sure that we're, you know, we're heading in the right direction. I also want to thank, you know, this past Saturday, we put together a earthquake preparedness, disaster planning course over at the District 2 Community Center. And we had a great turnout, record-breaking turnout, you know. And I want to thank, you know, our Office of Emergency Services, Brian Walker, his staff, Crystal and Amber. Great. I mean, just the information that they shared was, I mean, something that now you can prepare your family and your loved ones for any type of disaster that might come to you, whether you're at home or visiting somebody out of state. You know, you'll be better prepared. We also had a presenter there from Area G, Jeff Richardson, that was there. That's Jeff right there that talked about, you know, from an area perspective, you know, how does Inglewood come into play? And then also our CERT representative, Jim Vaughn, one of our commissioners. He also, there he is, Jim Vaughn, talked about CERT. And so I encourage you, if you haven't taken a CERT training course, please, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, because when a disaster hits, not if, but when, remember, our police and our firefighters, they're going to be tied up. So we're going to have to be helping each other out. So again, I want to thank Brian for you and your staff. I know you're in the back over there, Brian. Thank you so very much. I also want to thank Republic Services. They donated some raffle prizes, as well as Safe Gas Services that donated an earthquake safety valve. Again, great turnout and, a very successful community event. So with that, enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Padilla. Councilman Franklin, District 4.
Yes, I just want to echo the sentiments of the first quarterly report of our financial report. It clearly is a good indicator that we are in the right direction. Being positive versus negative is always a good thing. But more importantly, it's the continuity that we get with staff in this council, and we've had to make some tough love decisions. Because of that, you can see that we are, as I say, the phoenix is rising, that we have in fact moved forward. But we couldn't do it without the continuity of staff and this council. So hats off to everyone that was involved. I had shared last week the challenge I had coming from Santa Barbara, where the 101 freeway was closed because of the mudslides, et cetera. So these earthquake preparedness and other items, do not take it lightly. It's very critical that you are arsenal with the information and you use it. Make sure you apply it. It's one thing to have your emergency kit all set to go, but if you don't have quick access to it, such as outside, as opposed to the building collapsing, guess what? You defeated the purpose. So keep that in mind. And then also, as a former Boy Scout leader, I can relate to the loss of Xavier Patterson. So Odessa Riley, please give my regards to the family, yourself, stay strong, and you will all be in my prayers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Franklin. Councilman Morales, District 3.
Thank you. And just let me start about Odessa. You're our friend. I'm sorry for your loss. As the mayor said, we all have someone close to us that we've gone through this week, this mental illness and its tragedies. 9 months ago, actually, someone from my family, very close, we lost him because of mental illness. And I'm amazed because they come from good families that do everything for them. It does not reflect on what the parents did, what they needed to do. It's just a difficult disease, and we don't know enough about it. So we need to talk about it more, and I thank you for bringing it up to us today. In regards to the budget, I want to touch that. I thank you, staff, for putting it all together. At the end of the day, the star of the show is the budget itself, and that's because it has come such a long way. We talk about when we first got on, I feel like it was so long ago, but the truth is there was moments when, I think it was mostly right before we came, when there was property being sold for a one-time money to cover certain parts of the budget, and that was something that obviously is a very poor routine by any city, but it's a reflection of kind of where the city was. And also another thing is capital improvement projects. I mean, the fact that, I tell the story of the 19 sidewalks that first year, everybody laughs, but I mean, I remember looking at the list in my area and the CDBG was going to give us something like 19. And it's a ridiculous thing when you cannot go to your city and expect the infrastructure to become safer, to become better, to become maintained. And I know our Public Works Department is doing a great job now of kind of balancing sometimes too many projects, major projects. We have Century Boulevard, which I think is valued at about $40 million. That's an amazing project for a city our size. So those are things that you're able to look at. The raises, the fact that the city is in a place where we could give raises to the employees, the fact that the city is putting on actual community events where we're not making any revenue as a city, we're just spending money, and that's because we're building a community, and we can right now. So those are moments in time. So we talk about the snapshot and how our revenue is up in sales 37% this year, more than last. That's a jump. And that's going to continue to build. This is the beginning of our upswing. So it's something we're really proud of. We're proud of our staff who used to help us balance the budget when we had far less. And now, of course, they're doing a great job. So I just wanted to point that out, Mayor. Thank you.
And once again, Odessa, our condolences on the loss of your friend, and not to belabor the point, but you know that up to this event, though, families suffer. They have offspring that suffer from this mental disability, and they suffer quietly, the embarrassment, but they give a lot of love. And so, Odessa, our deepest condolences and support for you and the family. I wanted to talk briefly about the city. First, I want to recognize Brian Walker and Judy McGlover and Amber for the work that they do in emergency preparedness. Brian was an assistant chief for me at the Los Angeles World Airport System. I spent 37 years in public safety. One of the foremost emergency preparedness people in this state. We're fortunate to have him heading up our unit here. And I want to thank you again, Brian, for all that you've done for the city. Getting back to the budget, Eloy highlighted something, that was like a big thing to get 19 sidewalks, and you could only do it out of CDBG money that was given by passed through from the federal government. We didn't have city money to do those kinds of things, but we got things going. And so now we use general fund to augment gas tax for the roads, to augment CDBG, because we're playing catch up on infrastructure of a city that was neglected for probably 15 years. 15 years, things have been falling apart. For 2010. And we redone Florence, Manchester, South La Brea. Century is 2/3 complete. Imperial Highway was started, will be finished by the end of 2019. We've done more linear feet of sidewalk in the last 5 years than probably in the last 20 years combined. We trim trees like nobody's business. And yet, we have reporters that call the city manager and they ask him why staff got bonuses last year. And they preface it with the statement of, you only recently stopped having deficits. That's why I asked staff about 5 years of surpluses. You see, because they don't intend to give us our due. They want to know why we give bonuses. City manager, the chief, to Ms. McDade, to our department heads, when we've obtained a Super Bowl, an NCAA championship bowl game. Ms. McDade negotiated the exclusive negotiations agreement with the LA Philharmonic to bring that program here to Inglewood. She negotiated with Serco, our processor for citations, a deal that gives us $1 million more than we would have received over the next 3 years. City managers overseen a city that has attracted the Girl Scouts of the United States. Later on this month, they'll have an opening of their new headquarters. They've renovated the building on North La Brea. The NFL Networks will be here in 2020 from leaving Culver City. Girl Scouts leaving Marina Del Rey. And they have the audacity to ask what we've done to pay bonuses to our executives. Outrageous. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I am so proud of what Mr. Fields, Mr. Sparza, Ken Campos, Jackson, Sabrina Barnes, Molly McDay, Louis Atwell, Premier Public Works Director, Matt Chambers, the Director of ITC, Jose Cortez, the Director of Personnel. We have done in 4 years, what only 3 other megacities have done: New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. To do. They have the nerve to call and ask why we would pay bonuses to our executives. There is no intent. They will go kicking and screaming before they give this city its due. And that's why we have to stick together as we have. That's why when you saw that budget presentation, it makes it really clear, really clear. So I want to tell all the employees that we're proud of you. The council is extremely proud of you. Residents are extremely proud of you. On into 2019. And with that, we're going to close the meeting in the memory of Xavier Patterson. Thank you.